we've been doing this series where we're focusing on people who are like founding in crypto. We love NFTs. We've done NFTs a lot. We've collected a load ourselves, but kind of branching in more into the crypto side. And you've obviously taken on the huge task of building out Abstract now. So I want to really talk about that. Maybe just the first question, just to kind of set the scene, get you've proven yourself across a number of levels beforehand. As a hyper successful internet entrepreneur, then in 2022 you bought Pudgy Penguins for 750 ETH, around 2.5 million, and have turned that into one of the biggest Web3 brands, if not the biggest. How do you reflect on that journey so far, and what inspired you then, after you've done all that stuff, after you've built in Web3 so successfully, to move towards building a chain? What's the inspiration?
Yeah, I think the inspiration for both of them are relatively the same. Maybe one was a little more different than the other, but I think in principle they were the same. I think when we bought Pudgy Penguins, it was a little bit out of frustration in the sense that I felt like there was so much progress, being made from a capital raise from venture and community perspective around this like next generation brand and innovative new way to kind of build communities. And there just seemed to be like a ton of things that I felt like was relatively obvious. And I ultimately felt like the bar had yet to be raised the way that I internally thought that NFT should be built, or at least in a certain capacity built in a way that I thought they should be built. And so we bought Pudgy. The rest is history. You guys have obviously been here for the last couple of years and have been watching the journey. But when coming across building an L2, I think the first one was out of necessity and trying to build an ecosystem in which we didn't shoot ourselves short in value accrual, I think was like how we got there in the first place. Meaning, we have Pudgy toys in Walmart and Targets, and I think just over 10,000 retailers across the country or across the world. We had this, we have products that are built for mass market that are using L2s. I believe all L2s from a tech perspective will be commoditized. I think they're following the same path that LLMs are. I think if you think that LLMs and blockchains are similar in the sense that they will all do the same thing 4 or 5 years from now, where's the value? I think the value's in the experience, the value's in the brand, the value's in the wrapper and the community. And so, thinking about the brand and the community, those are two things that we've been building for the last couple of years. The wrapper and the experience has yet to be really compartmentalized in a way that I think makes sense. And so, when kind of first exploring Abstract for our own selves, we ultimately, after taking a deep dive and looking at every chain, I kind of saw an opportunity. And the opportunity that I saw was one that felt obvious, but it was the same obvious opportunity that we saw in Pudgy Penguins that we saw here, which was, I just think people are building it the same way over and over and over and over and over again. And just nobody, I think, is trying to do something different. And so I actually believe in a central destination, a central, interface in which the entire chain is vertically integrated, in which you can do everything through this one singular interface. I just believe in that. I believe in that because we've seen this in similar times prior to Web3 and Web2, where I think, when you have pieces and something that I think clearly works, but it's fragmented and the experience isn't curated properly, that ultimately, the people who are smart enough to get it end up getting it, but it never breaks through into true mass market penetration. And so from my perspective, I thought to myself, well, if blockchains today feel like 4chan and they're decentralized and you kind of put the pieces together and you know how to navigate it, then ultimately, you can find, parts of that website that are super helpful. And if you don't know how to navigate it, you can find parts of that website that are super harmful. But, 4chan was, I think, the first version of what it made. And there hasn't really been another one since, because ultimately it doesn't drive growth. And so if I were to look at 4chan and if I were to, create the analogy that most blockchains today, to me, feel like 4chan, they feel like a puzzle piece that you have to put together to actually use. Our thought process internally was like, well, how do we build Instagram? How do we build something? And I kind of referenced the barista test, right? If you told your local barista, I'm going to give you $1,000 if you can go buy this coin on Ethereum within the hour. What is the probability of her actually being able to win that $1,000 and performing that action within 60 minutes? I think the probability is around 5%. But if you told that same barista, I have $1,000 for you to go onto this website, abs.xyz, and buy this token, I think if you go through our experience and our flow, I believe that the probability goes from 5% to somewhere to 35 to 40%. And obviously I want to get that to as close as 100 as possible. But that is ultimately, the mindset and kind of how we're building this is how do you build the best consumer experience? I believe in blockchains having a central destination in which there's a verticalized experience in which you can do everything on chain. And though I know it's unorthodox to current behavioral patterns and how I think we're all used to doing things, I think our goal has always been, right? Like our mission at the Igloo has always been to go bring a new set of people in, right? That was our mission at Pudgy. That was our mission at Igloo. That's our mission at Abstract. And I know we got a lot of slack for that. And that, obviously prevented, and has to some degree been a little bit of a handicap to some of the, on-chain momentum within the ecosystem. But yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's right. I'm going to leave. Brad's going to dive into a bit more the experience, because I think that's an excellent distinction you're drawing between the experience of Abstract versus some of the others. I wanted to double click on that point you made about how L2s are just proliferating. They're all exactly the same, doing the same things over and over again. And you guys have definitely made a conscious decision to differentiate yourselves in a few ways. Just naming two, and then giving you the chance to maybe speak to those and maybe other conscious decisions you took. You've gone for this streaming angle, which as creators we find super interesting, and I think that's pretty interesting. And also maybe just the lack of DeFi, right? A lot of crypto natives might have felt that there's like less for them to do, in the sense there's no liquidity providing or no significant liquidity providing. And so you've obviously made those two conscious decisions to try to bring in this next generation of crypto users. How are you thinking about that? How are you finding that going? What's your strategy there?
Yeah, so I think on the streaming side, it's about entertainment. So like, why do people come into crypto? They come into crypto to make money and they stay because they're having fun, right? And so like fun, if you were to derive fun into one word, it'd be entertainment. And so like, I also looked at like what makes chains. Chains are only as good as the apps that are built on top of it. And so what's a compelling story? One, to entertain the user, and two, to give apps PMF. And so I was trying to think of an automated reward system for content creators to go and bolster apps on the chain within the ecosystem. And so, if you actually think about the funnel at scale, the website at scale, if you put all the pieces together and you put fuel on the fire, I think is a pretty incredible one, which is, I think we have the best 0 to 1 in crypto, meaning you point somebody to abs.xyz. I think it's the singular best destination to onboard them. And then they go and they're watching a streamer. That streamer's playing an Abstract app, right? Having fun, hopefully, making money, hopefully. And they are then, almost converting the user who is just onboarded into the ecosystem to go and maybe, inspire them to follow suit in terms of, enjoying the product the way that they're enjoying it. And then you automate that system by basically saying like, hey, streamers on the platform, like, there's a lot of different tranches of rewards, and you guys are going to go into a tranche that is going to be beneficial to you guys for bolstering and advertising and entertaining and providing, entertaining content, on the platform. And so, at scale, right? If you're actually, so the beauty about having one central destination is I only have to market one thing. And so I don't think abs.xyz is abs.xyz for very long. I think it gets rebranded. I think the analogy is if Abstract is Anthropic, right? Portal is Claude, right? And so don't be surprised if it has its own brand name and its own thing, because Portal is very much an experience, and Abstract is the payment rails that powers that experience, which anyone can use, right? But, the Portal's intent is to, hopefully be the singular most fun destination for new people and current people within crypto to ultimately participate, with their discretionary spending and with their free time, right? And so the flywheel's built to ultimately inspire, streamers to not only make content for the user to go and convert them, right? Almost like TikTok shop style. I'm a consumer product guy, so that's where the inspiration came. QVC, TikTok shop, right? It's a lot easier to go and do something when somebody's selling it, and enjoying it directly on stream. And then if I activate our machine, which most people haven't really seen our machine, but if I'm being, those who are really paying attention to Pengu, they saw what we were doing really early on those first couple of weeks. Like we have a unique ability in our organization to get hundreds of millions of views through TikTok, promoting, games and products. And then you point that to one singular destination. The onboarding's easy. The streamers are converting. They're in this own little tranche where, the streamer rewards are interesting because, it's easy to make sure that 1,000 people are taken care of. It's like, it's harder. The big problem with like airdrops is like, oh, there's like, 1 million people. Like, how do you make it meaningful for everyone? But like when you have 1,000 people, it's really easy to be like, okay, I'm gonna, you're playing a huge part of my ecosystem. I'm gonna take care of you in a super meaningful way. And then you kind of create this like self-perpetual, kind of flywheel. And again, I just think it's different. I don't think anyone is thinking around fun and entertainment and creators and centralized experiences and that vertical integration and understanding that, like, look, at the end of the day, if you want blockchains to really break it into scale, this idea of putting, installing the MetaMask and then going to Uniswap and then like, funding it on another bridging website, like that actually fundamentally doesn't make sense for the average Joe. Like the people here, you have to naturally understand that you are clearly a little bit different than the average person, right? You have a little bit of you're a little more, advanced, I would probably say, like when it comes to just the average Joe. The average Joe needs like if you really want that breakthrough, they need an Instagram style experience, one that basically makes it easy for them. And that's really our objective. And I think, if you can, and so the pieces go together where it's like, hey, if I have the best 0 to 1 in crypto, right, and I have the most fun ecosystem in crypto, and you guys know our marketing prowess, and you tie them all together, it's like, oh shit, there's actually a system here and a flywheel that, like, if this thing really gets greased and starts flying, could be one of the most incredible things that we've seen. Now, granted, we have a lot of things that we still need to do, right? There was a lot of, over the last couple of weeks, we've just been fixing and making it better. It's going to get here pretty soon that I think we're going to launch a couple killer features. And I think all of the little bumps and kinks on the road will be fixed. And once that happens, I told the team, the ball's in my court. Then it's time for me to grease the wheels. And what does it look like to get big streamers in here to create, crypto style events, the likes of which of like Fortnite and Travis Scott, and bring everyone into our ecosystem. And once you're in, right, and once you're depositing money, it's so easy to go 10 different places, right? It's once you're in AGW, once you're in that portal, it's easy for you to tip a streamer. It's easy for you to trade. It's easy for you to go participate in an app. And I'm at scale. It's like, okay, what are the most meaningful metrics that change? Well, everyone thinks like TVL and TPS. Like, you don't understand, like, those are so easily gamed. TVL, you can do a backdoor deal with somebody, some ancient whale, for some tokens to go put monster TVL. That's what everyone does. TPS, you can just get the machines going and, like, farmers are making the TPS and they're doing their thing. Like, but what matters really, right? What matters really is like timeline virality. What matters really is app revenue and how much money the apps are making. The top apps on Abstract are printing cash, right? Like, they're already up there with some of the best apps on EVM in terms of some of the money that they're making. Retention, right? How many people are coming back and how much time are they spending? These are actually the metrics that I'm mattering for. Like everyone, was trying to be like, oh, TVL. And I actually get the TVL thing a little bit because consciously, building a chain is about making, you want to be on a new chain if there's money to be made, right? Like, that's why most people go on to new chains. And so low TVL, the one thing I didn't forecast in that whole equation, because I started this and I was like, I don't give a shit about TVL, right? Like, because I want to know what actually real size is on my chain. Because once you start gamifying it, you actually don't know the real size, right? So you actually don't know what is real capital and what isn't. I do understand the mental barrier it's created for people, which is like, oh, can a runner really go past 50 million on abstract if the TVL is 50 million? Right. And it creates like a mental handicap, which is like, I guess that's why people have been doing those deals and gaming it. And I didn't really see it that way initially, but that's the ramble. I'm going to hand it off back to you guys.
No, that's super interesting, man. I take a lot of your points, and I think a lot of that makes sense in terms of focusing on the experiential stuff. I want to hand over to Brad because I saw him like super interested on the product side. He's going to ask a couple of things on the product, but just to check in on timing, Luca, if you're able to run over maybe 10 minutes or so, we'd initially scheduled for 30, but already 26 minutes past the hour. So if you've got a bit more time, let us know. Otherwise,
I'm good for the whole hour. I'm good.
Good. Okay, cool. So we'll go for at least another 20 or so because Brett, I know Brett's got a bunch of questions. Legendary will have a couple too. So Brett, take it away.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it succinct. You alluded to some stuff. So I like just to reframe it for some people in the audience, right? You said AGW, like what that stands for is your abstract global wallet. And you're so used to it because you're already launched and you're dealing with it now. But I think for the audience to know what that represents and why that is a meaningful differentiator for your chain, right? Like if assuming these people listening now are crypto native, right? If you're interacting on a lot of these L2s, you would note that like there's some things that we'll call have been headwinds for adoption or user experience or just broadly interacting with these chains, right? So abstract global wallet is like native account abstraction at the chain level, right? So like the chain itself means instead of coming in and having your normal wallet, which has a private key that you hold in your hand, it's account abstraction, which means, you know, your where your assets are held is an actual smart contract for everyone. Like that's done at default. And you have some social sign-in stuff that's enabled by Privy, which obviously has popularized the social sign-in element across most chains these days. So people might be familiar with it, but the fact that it's native to the chain kind of gives you guys a little bit of a level up. And then it enables stuff like removal of like the approval like function, right? Which people have criticized pretty heavily recently, right? You have to approve something and then you swap it. It's just something native to the EVM. EVM being like Ethereum base, most traditional networks in the Ethereum ecosystem, and then stuff like session keys, which allows for giving this contract certain permissions for a certain window, right? Like gaming sessions is probably the most analogous thing for a lot of people, right? You join a gaming session, you have something that pops up, you're doing something for a window, and then it goes away, right? And you want to be able to have something that has permissions to act on your behalf for that window. Maybe you can just expand a little bit on like why that was such an important feature for you guys to enable on the chain itself.
Well, it's both a catch-22 because on one side it enables that experience. Like when you upvote, like you're making a transaction, right? Like there's like things like maybe when you have an account, like maybe like there's little things that make the experience so exciting because like maybe I open up follows and subscriptions on Abstract, right? For the streamers and for all users. And maybe I can program it so that every time somebody follows you, you get $1, and there's nothing, you just click, right? And it's like, oh yeah, then everyone's gonna be like, oh, come follow me on Abstract, right? And you go make $1 a follow. And it's like, it just enables a whole different type of experience. Like the upvote thing is one of the things, like, it sounds so stupid, but like I actually is one of the great, I've never seen an experience like that. You're telling me an upvote is a transaction on chain, right? Like, that's like and then like, what does that all enable? And then it goes to like, oh, what if I can make it so that like every follow and maybe like I'll let you like make your own tweets there. And then like every like you get is like 5 cents, and like, what does it actually enable? Because really what it is, like, there's a lot of social features that need to be built into that portal, right? Because people are clamoring for it because it's like, the streaming falls really short without it. And so you got to build on top of it a little bit. And so, and then you come down to like the 0 to 1, which is, from our perspective, like I just believe in that, like at scale for consumer adoption, I just believe in that email flow. I believe in, it feeling like a create an account experience, right? Like it just has to feel like that because that's what we're accustomed to. That's what humans right now trust, right? It's just like email code, right? And just building it into like, a lot of the handicaps in crypto and a lot of the problems that I'm bringing up are actually on a wallet level, right? So like a lot of people are not, have kind of misguided that as just like that experience. But I actually think like the wallet and this experience should be one and the same. So I think it's, to answer your question simply, it's like all of the features that I think it unlocks and all of the new behavioral patterns and things that I think you can do now because of it. And then you pair it with just, I think, just a simply better experience. Now, mind you, there's cons to it, right? So I was talking to the team and I was like, I don't want to put 100 ETH on this, right? Like something about it is not clicking, right? And that was like feedback that I think other people experience is like, I can put maybe 20, but like me putting real size, into this new thing, even me as like one of the founders, like makes me feel uncomfortable. So these are the things that I think we're addressing and fixing internally is like why do I feel uncomfortable? Why won't I? Right. And there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And there's naturally Achilles heels with that process. But I think if we can address those Achilles heels, right, and give current existing users something that they're familiar with and maybe a different part of the experience, right? Not necessarily the portal experience, but maybe the abstract experience, then I think we can give the best of both worlds.
So, I think the default thoughts whenever you're dealing with on-chain transactions that everything has to be financial, right? So like even what you're talking about there with like, oh, I do a upvote or whatever, transacts $1 or makes me tweet whatever. But I think one thing that would go hidden here, and is actually very similar to what Kaido did recently with like Kaido Yaps being put on chain with the Ethereum attestation service, is it allows for a level of composability, right? Like if you think about what's going on in a traditional website, right? We'll use Reddit upvotes as an example, right? If I do an upvote, only people in the world that have access to that upvote or knowledge or awareness of that upvote are Reddit, right? That's the problem. But if you do it in a transaction on chain, because the nature of these things and the stuff's permissionless, open, public, right? That means I, as a developer, can come along and I can actually build something and compose with people who have upvoted, right? So now it's not transactional, but it is informational, and it is something that can make an ecosystem more intertwined, robust, and frankly fun, creative, and open for people to build on. So I think outside of just a straight up monetary aspect of that stuff, which is real, right? You can actually do that. Like you click a button and it takes money from you and gives you $1, but you can also just it allows for composability and doesn't bound all of the things that can be built on top of this thing to just the entity that runs the thing, which I think is ultimately what this place is powerful for. I know B-Check had a little bit something you want to say on it too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I completely agree on the wallet question. That one of my reflections recently has been, I wonder whether or to what extent is the reason why Solana has been so successful in the last cycle purely been because of Phantom, or purely been because of that user experience that Phantom enables. Like, yes, okay, there's no approvals and that makes it faster, but when you compare that with MetaMask, or you try to go once you start using Solana more and then you try to go back, it's really, really challenging. So I think that makes sense. But my maybe extension of that question was, given that you're so focused on the consumer, and the consumers increasingly are on mobile. So I think definitely on the web, it's super important for there to be this better wallet experience, because that has not been good up to this point. But to what extent are you guys thinking about mobile? Is that something on the horizon? How are you guys thinking about that? I don't know what you can say, what you can't say, but I'm curious from the user experience.
Yeah, I just give credit where credit is due. I mean, dude, this abs.xyz on your phone is nasty. It's good, dude. Like, just do it. Go on your phone, type in the email, like comparatively, like it's not even a PWA yet, like where, you'll probably see a PWA soon, something that you can like download like Friend Tech, right? And just keep on your phone, or Fantasy Top. So you'll see that from us. But if you just go to it right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to find, again, like the experience works, and it works pretty flawlessly, and it's smooth and it's clean. And it's, again, there's a lot of things, we just got, we got some bad beats these last couple of weeks, but I think if you really look at it for what it is, even the hack a couple of days ago, it just felt like you would have thought we got hacked for $100 million, and it wasn't even us. It was a third party, and it wasn't even, we have to be on the portal. You got to be doxxed. You got to have passed multiple security audits. Like the fluke and how that happened was like literally just like negligence. Like you just got to call it like, just, you can't 10 out of 10 times, or, we'll call it 8 to 9 out of 10 times. You can't you'll never know that that's going to happen unless like you assume that that type of stuff will never happen. Now, granted, it did, right? But you know, to the point, it's just like, I actually think if people look at it objectively and you look at it for what it is, like, is there really 5 chains right now that have a better, more fun experience? Like honestly, like remove the runners from the equation, right? Because that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants to make money, right? And like we're opening the floodgates into allowing that to be a lot easier. But like, think about it. Think about the product and what was built here. And that thing really has only been in production for 4 months. Like, wait till we get to month 12 and month 18, right? Like, people are forgetting a lot of these chains are dead in the water years after launching. And the ones that have succeeded, you know, took years to succeed, right? And I think the path that we're on, the trajectory that we're on in terms of like from a product build, from an ecosystem build, from a community build, I think we're just eons ahead of a lot of people. Now, granted, we were on a crazy hype train and we missed expectations, and I'll take that on the chin. That's on my chest. But like, I actually think if you look at it today, and now we're starting to get some runners. On-chain heroes is, you know, was a great mint yesterday for the community. I think some meme coins started taking off because of it, right? And like now capital is starting to froth around. You know, all it takes is one runner, right? One real crazy runner for this, for everyone to, because I believe once you're in, it's kind of like the Phantom experience. Like, especially as we improve the product, I think once you're in, it's going to be hard to go elsewhere, right? Like once you're in and you start making money and things start working the way. And I told the community this like off the backs of the launch to be like, don't be surprised when this flips on a dime, right? Because like actually the bones of what we have, I think is just like, again, eons ahead of what I think a lot of other people have. And just somehow the universe has just been like bad beat after bad beat. I mean, with the Trump and the Melania and the melee and the nonsense and, you know, everything that's happening on that side of the world. And like, granted, like, I totally am not living in a different universe where I know we missed expectations on launch. There was 3 things we could have done that we should have done that like somehow, some way, like our biggest thing at the Igloo has always been about addressing problems before they happened. And I think just the nature of the weeks prior to mainnet launch and like everyone's head being discombobulated and all the things that I had mentioned that like kind of, I don't know what happened, but whatever happened is in the past and now we're pushing forward. And I think like looking ahead of us, we're really confident that the way that we're building this and the spirit in which we're building this is the right way. I think as you're going to see more people make money on the chain, I think that's going to become even more evident because more people are going to pile in and FOMO. And I think once you're in it, you're going to think to yourself, well, dude, I just can't point to find 5 better chain experiences than this. And then I think we compound and then the race and then we're in the race. And then the path towards winning is, and then now we start getting on that path and we start competing. But yeah, I just naturally think that I think it's currently constructed when you see the PWA and some of these other core killer features that we have. I think we're 4, 5, 6 weeks away truly from people being like, dude, this is the chain. And we took a little bump in the road with the hack that, like, you know, it was only a couple $100,000. It's not great. And we're working to get the money back and doing our best to refund users. And I think at a minimum, we'll take care of them in some other way. You know, but like, I think people are, you know, really, I don't know, but I think that if you don't see it, you'll see it shortly. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to argue that the product focus or the curated view of all this stuff is a different perspective of how these chains actually come to market, right? You've covered that pretty well already in the conversation of just like a lot of the stuff is tech forward as opposed to consumer forward. And I think if there is one key differentiator for the actual chain itself, that will be it. You actually already touched on some of the things I wanted to bring up. We actually covered the exploit the other day, and you know, as you pointed out, right, like there's nothing that the abstract chain or global wallet or anything could have done to prevent it, right? It was negligence, as you said, on the hand of the actual app creator, right? They exposed some private keys that were not meant to be exposed to everyone, right? They didn't follow best practices. You could have audited that stuff, but that's all stuff that unless they expose that stuff 100% of the time, like 100% of their stack, which some of that stuff might be proprietary to your guys' actual team or the audit firm, like that stuff's not going to get caught. So like it's unfortunate, but it is isolated or should be isolated to just the implementation of that specific team. And it's good to hear that you're going down the path of refunds. We had some people that are asking questions about that. So You know, I don't know if that's 100%, or you said doing it in other ways, but you know,
we gotta get the money back, because I think the precedent is like, I can't set the precedent that like
right,
once you open up that Pandora's box, it becomes crazy.
right,
But I can tell we have Seal 911 on it. You know, we think we actually, this guy's not doxxed, like he's not findable. So that's great, right?
nice.
The money hasn't moved, and I think we're making progress into who this person is. And once you have that, I mean, you basically have them in a corner. And I think that will come sooner rather than later. And at an absolute minimum, right, we can do some sort of badge and make it so that like, look, like there's a lot of the people who lost money there are like, you know, Sybil wallets. And then there's like 200 or 300 users that you can tell are like real people that like got smoked. And you got to make sure that, like, we're going to try our best to figure out how to take care of that bunch, so that like, you know, at the end of the day, it sucks. And like, there's no way around it, but like, we can make it make sense. So that's not a complete L, right? But like the precedent of, you know, once you open up the Pandora's box, if we don't get the money back, right, from the guy directly, which I think we actually will, I think the probability increases by the day. Then like there's a real precedent there. Cause like we did our like due diligence on like what happened. And, you know, kind of like you said, Brad, there's, you know, we're auditing contracts, we're not auditing front end. And like, why would a private key be like accessible through your front end? Like, that's just insanity.
Right.
You know,
that's 101 stuff, right?
That's just like insane. So, but there's lessons learned. There's ways that like in hindsight that like, okay, we have to be more critical and stringent on like, we have to try to do a test on like who, like, are these devs, you know, passing like, you know, intermediate level competency, and like, you know, that I think is probably a new KPI we have to throw in there.
Yeah, that's amazing. But yeah, like hearing the auditing on the front end stuff, like it clearly you guys are doing a little bit more than most chains, right? Because like there's no curation at all, and the level that they actually like protect their users in that sense are few and far between. But I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to pass it over to Legendary. I know he's got some questions on a few other just general questions.
Yeah, I gotta say, I got a bit of FOMO first when I heard there might be a badge in play that I can't get because I didn't get hacked. I wanted to double down on something you said before. You said, you know, and that's also what Ovard said in the YouTube comments, insane self-awareness. Not many founders have that. You reflected on the launch. You said that there were like 3 things that you could have done in a different way. Can you speak to 1 or 2 of those? What in hindsight you would have approached differently for the launch?
Yeah, the most obvious one was like somehow, some way, right? Like we kind of rushed to launch because I knew the ecosystem apps like wanted us to launch, right? But like on day 1, there was like 2 guys who were deployed. So once you got through all like the bugs and the kinks, right, there was nothing to do. So the hub of fun, the consumer chain, the place for you to participate in discretionary spending is like, there was nothing to do. And like, that was the case for probably the first week. That was the easiest thing to address ahead of time. The second one was like understanding, and we had brought this up many times. I think if we would have been a little more in tune with like how we've been building this for the last couple of years, we would have just realized that like people plugging in and having access to their existing setup, right? Like we ultimately didn't, there's a natural handicap to runners to run until we can open up the floodgates for people like me with 100 ETH on my MetaMask who want to come in and participate, right? Like there will naturally be a handicap there. Thankfully, that's a really easy problem to fix relatively, right? Like you just, at some point, you just have to have a lander and an experience that is like the same as like Base and Blast and everything else, which is like, you know, connect your wallet, plug in, do whatever you need to do. Here's third-party discovery. Here's your third-party DEX. Like you don't need to go use Portal. And if you don't believe in that consolidated experience, you can continue in the way that you've been doing things. I will tell you though, knowing all the, having all the conversations I had, Phantom, all these guys are going in this direction. This AGW setup, like this is not just us. Like you're going to see a lot of big companies go and move into, I think, this type of experience. So that would be the second one. That would probably be the second easiest one to fix. And the third one's really not our fault, right? The third one is like RPCs and data indexing was all wonky the first 48 hours. But like, you know, when you run it through testnet and you're talking to all these third-party providers and you're telling them this is going to be big, like there's going to be tons of people and scale it up max, and like they don't. right? Like, you know, those are just like, I think just growing pains with like having a hype launch and just like some people not fully having their ducks in a row. And, you know, 8 out of 10 times it probably goes the way it goes, right? So, but I think the two big problems was like, okay, allowing people to plug in with their existing setup and not forcing the entire chain experience through AGW, or at least that's how it felt, right? Even though that's not necessarily true. Like you can still use abstract without going to portal. You just got to, be a slightly more intuitive in the next place, right? And then ecosystem was like the easiest one, which was like, oh shit, like we should have really, we did a sweep. And I remember doing this sweep 2 days before launch. I was like going through the ecosystem and I was like clicking on all these websites and I was like, well, they're not live. There's nothing to do, but like, I'm assuming because the chain isn't live, right? And like the conclusion that we all came to is like, yeah, like they're all ready to deploy. Like we're going through this app section. We're clicking all these things. There's nothing to do on any of it. But I'm like, oh, well, because they haven't like flipped the switch of like turning it on because the chain's not on, right? So like I get that. And that was just like the assumption, and then it just turned out like the day of launch, like nobody was ready for the first week. But now you go to abs.xyz and it's like, dude, like again, like there's 4 or 5 apps on there that I'm like, you take the top 20 EVM apps, I think we got 4 or 5 of them, right? Like I just do, right? Like on-chain heroes fun, roach racing fun, right? Like the games on there fun. There's like a bunch of things on there that I think are really fun. Multipliers fun. So, we'll see. And I there's going to be a breakthrough app here pretty shortly. And I think there's a couple ones that are working on some killer features that make it way more fun. Roach racing, when you start wagering, like how fun is that going to be? Who's the best short-term trader, and there's real money on the line. So yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I see that challenge that on the one hand, you're working on curating the experience on the chain, on curating the user flow, because this is how in the user experience, because this is how you've been approaching building the product. And on the other hand, you also kind of want to open it up for people to experience it with their own setup, whichever way they want to experience it. And I can imagine it's like kind of hard to strike that balance. But going maybe on the more positive note, because we did have like quite some grilling and challenging questions. What are some of the things that you've been really enjoying to see on Abstract? I mean, you quickly mentioned mobile experience is something you already like at this point, even though the PWA isn't live yet. But what are some of the other things? Maybe also things that you didn't expect to happen on chain that you are quite proud of and quite happy with.
I think the interface and the experience, like I really believe that's where the value is going to be accrued. And if you don't believe me, just look at the LLM race. I think the LLM race and the blockchain race is very, very similar. And like, why is ChatGPT accruing the most value right now? Is because it has the best consumer experience, right? Like it owns that consumer behavior, right? And so if LLMs all do the same thing and give you some version within 99% degree of the same answer, right? Like where is the moat, right? The moat is in the experience. It's in the interface, right? It's in the wrapper, they call it in LLM land. Well, like all blockchains are going to do the same thing. They're going to send transactions from one destination to another quickly, right? Like they will all do that. And they will all do that within 99% degree of separation, I think, within a couple of years. And they're already kind of there. I'm just saying a couple of years because I think you really won't be able to delineate and understand the difference between a chain, in a couple of years. And so like, where's the value? It's in that experience. It's in that brand. It's in that wrapper and that interface. And I think I'm really proud of what those guys were able to accomplish there. The smoothness on desktop and mobile, I think, is bar none. I think I've really liked to see some streamers step it up. I think you've probably got 70% of the streamers are kind of like, tapping into a childhood dream to like be like the next Logan Paul and Jake Paul. And they're in there, but there's like 35% of them that are really getting the memo, right? And are really making content around these apps, and the growth of these apps. And then like the relationship with the content creator and the streamer and the bumps they're getting when some of the big streamers on the platform are, using the apps, like it's really meaningful. And so that's working. You're not seeing it maybe the way that like off the backs of a crazy hype train. And I had like every crypto influencer and their mom signed up, and I was going to have the biggest guys on it. And so I guess like we stunk the bed a little bit so guys aren't FOMOing in, but they will, right? Because like again, all it needs is everyday progress and just compound. And eventually, there's going to be that killer feature in one of the existing apps, maybe a killer feature on the portal, or maybe an on-chain runner or something, and everyone piles in. And then I think the flywheel, just the potential for this just gets more and more meaningful as more and more people come in, because it's like they all kind of help each other. And so I've been really fascinated to see that. I'll probably take like the pessimist side in terms of like what I thought, all things considered, that we wouldn't get the bad beat that we did. Like, I thought, like, there's just been something in the air in this market for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm not going to play victim by any means, but I just thought we got way worse of a bad beat than I thought like we should have. And like the surprising part was just like the lack of runners. Like, that really confused me. I was like, dude, this is not just bad. Like, for a while there, like, it's starting to pick up some serious momentum now, but like for the first couple of weeks, man, it was a stink show, right? Like, we've stinking up the joint in terms of on-chain runners, right? And like that was shocking to me, but it really wasn't once I started being honest with myself as to like, well, I have 100 ETH on a MetaMask, and I'm the type of guy that like I'm a little bit of a fool. They make fun of me internally because I'm spending my money on all of our shit. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to lose the money or make whatever, but I just don't even want to put it in, so then I started to look internally in my behavior as to like, why did I not put my 100 ETH over onto the chain? Right. And then I started to realize the problems, but I guess I was a little shocked, or, the on-chain momentum, I think, was a little bit of a doozy for me because I didn't think it would be that bad. But again, like, the beauty of the way that we launched was all you can do is at that, off the backs of that launch, all you can do is go up. It can only get better. And even now, it can only get real, like, knock on wood, like, minus like some sort of catastrophe, which like, I think people underestimate how much of a goat Saigar and all these guys are. I mean, these guys are beasts, really putting in a true 16-hour shift, and have been doing it for the last couple of weeks. Because they care so much, and they want to win, and they want this to succeed. But like, it really can only get better here, right? Like, I think. And so I think that's the beauty of it, is I think for the last couple of weeks, we've really been, the underdogs, and the back is against the wall. But I think this is where we thrive. And ultimately how when abstract is what I know it's going to be, it's going to be a beautiful moment to reflect on, like, the launch in these last couple of weeks is like a moment that helped make the product better, that helped make the experience better, that ultimately got us to where I know this is going to go.
Really appreciate the honesty and the insights on that. Look, we've been going for almost an hour with this. We've been mostly focusing on abstract, but I have to ask a question. Obviously, we have quite a few penguins with us in the audience. Bchek and I are penguins myself. How are you currently thinking about both the NFT side of things, the Pengu token, and also as a founder, how are you like kind of splitting your attention between your thoughts on the token, your thoughts on the NFT collection? Obviously, you still have the toy business, which is massive and running, and now the L2 with abstract.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so the history of Pudgy, unbeknownst to most, is like, there's been many times in our journey where like we talk to ourselves, and I'll go to my partners and I'll be like, everything's going right for us right now. Like, like, it is just compounding. Like, we'll do something, and then like Kai Cenat will stream like penguins. I didn't even plan that, and like, and it'll just compound and just be like, dude, the universe is on our side. Dude, this is the first time in 3 years, and it's going to be 3 years in a couple weeks, that like, whoa, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Like, and like a lot of it is like, you can't even control it. You're just like you're just there taking it, and this out of all of the moments is really, I think, going to separate like this is one of those moments, I think, that is like, this is one of those Pudgy Penguin tests. And so if you've been in Pudgy Penguins, there's been like 3 or 4 instances throughout the time of the project where it's like, even the biggest believers are tested, and this is right up there with it. you know, I can take some accountability and say that, like, I think our communication with abstract and how I see them tying in together and like those expectations, I totally take that on the chin, and that's on us. I think the other side of it is, you know, the black swan in the memetic category. I mean, this is truly black swan after black swan. I mean, like this is like, if you were to put anything here, you know, like if for memes, like you got them, right? And you got them back to back to back, right? Like truly back to back to back. And so I think from our perspective, it's like, look, red candles create community. And when we get through the other side of this, which we will, because we have every other time, and I'm not going anywhere, and this ship only stops, you know, if I decide to stop, and I'm not deciding to stop anytime soon. And I think the ship still goes if I did that. But again, like as long as I'm here kicking it, it's never going to fail, because I think the playbook and the thought process around what we're trying to do is so obvious. And memes are like, if you think Pengu, we'll just talk about Pengu. If you think Pengu is done, you think memes are done, right? If you think memes as a category will survive and thrive, which I think you'd be remiss to believe otherwise. I'd be remiss if you believed otherwise, because it's already stood the test of time, you know, for many cycles already, right? Then I know over the course of time that Pengu will win, because what we're doing at Pengu is, I have this paper that I'm writing, but I'll give you an insight as to what the paper is about. I basically say that social currencies are meme coins in their final form. And so if you've been listening to my interviews the last 6 weeks, I've been kind of referencing pudgy penguins as like a meme coin plus plus. I couldn't find the terminology that ultimately made it makes, like, I didn't find like a really clear word that like embodied what I thought Pengu was. So I just called it a meme coin plus plus, with the plus plus being like, one plus being brand development, the other plus being like token sinks and like being really proactive and taking supply off the market. I think now the term that I was looking for was a social currency, right? And so I think Pengu and where these memes need to go is, I actually think social currencies are the graduation from meme coin into something bigger and better. And so a social currency is something that really transcends, right, into the hearts and minds of hundreds of millions of people and is integrated everywhere. And I actually think like this future of, you know, an IP token that is memetic in its nature, that it has deep ties with its community, that ultimately is sole purpose is to push the bounds of crypto adoption by breaking barriers and pushing boundaries and making headlines, is ultimately like the recipe for success and the final form and graduation of where I think meme coins can go. Because meme coins today are very non-sentient, right? That's a picture, it's a community, and it's a narrative, and that's all it is. Yet I think meme coins don't really understand the position that some of them are in to really push crypto forward, which is like, I think IP is going to play a huge role in pushing crypto forward. I think people underestimate its role in actually pushing crypto forward. And I actually think memes have a huge opportunity to set the tone and set the playbook for what I think, you know, that type of adoption looks like. And so when you're worth billions of dollars, like, why is it that you're doing nothing? Why is it that you're not trying to push crypto to more people and actually go and do what IP can do better than anything else, which is galvanize millions of people to rally behind your character and your story, right? The meme playbook has been very lackadaisical, to say the least, right? It is literally, the bar is so low. And I actually believe that the playbook that we're going to set over at Pudgy Penguins and with Pengu is, I think we're going to reinvent how people look at meme coins. And I think we're going to add a lot of credibility to what a meme coin can be, the same way that I think we added a lot of credibility to the NFT. And how do they marry? I think the NFT at the end of the day is like the nucleus of the ecosystem, right? Like the NFT will always be a part of everything that we do. It's that tribalism. It's that identity layer. I mean, don't even take my word for it, but like, you know, I'm in the business of supporting the NFT to the maximum of my ability and rewarding them to the maximum of my ability. And look at Pengu. Like, Pengu was generous for the entire space, but one of the reasons why we did the tokenomics the way that we did, and I know some people are resentful that, you know, we gave a lot of Pengu to other people that weren't in the ecosystem. I just don't believe Pengu could be what it's ultimately going to be if it was just everyone cashing out Pudgy Penguin holders. Like, what a bad story that is. So like, granted, like I understand tokens, like I'm in the business of them going up and to the right, like elephant in the room. I'm not negligent of that, right? Like I know that's what that is to some certain extent, right? I'm the king of the castle when it's going up, and I failed and I blew it up when it was going down, right? Like that's just the nature of the beast. Now I can't get lost in that short-term noise, but at a certain extent, like I wanted to take care of Pudgy Penguin holders to the best of my ability, right? But you can't go give 25% of the supply. Who's bidding that token? You're just cashing out Pudgy Penguin holders. There's no story to tell. But when we gave the tokens to everyone, it was like, well, everyone's getting cashed out, right? And so it's not just this like one-sided relationship where like, you know, if this was just Pudgy Penguin token and that was the all and be all, I believed, right, that it ultimately would have fallen short because it would have just been like a thing that, you know, at the end of the day, like regardless of where Pengu is now, when it starts going up, because I believe it will, right? Everyone has some sort of like a, like they had a piece of it, whether they have it now, like they're not like, oh, we still took care of everyone, you know, and that will never go away. And that I think will pay huge dividends over the course of time. And so that's the role of Pengu. The Pudgy Penguin NFT is the nucleus. You know, we really took care of them. We will continue to take care of them, right? Like that is the identity layer. Everyone who's wearing a Pudgy Penguin PFP is proliferating the Pudgy Penguin brand. And you guys are our affiliates. You're our community members. You're our marketers. And I'm in the business of taking care of you guys until the wheels fall off. And then, you know, the abstract tie into all of it is, you know, a social currency. And you're kind of seeing this with streams. Like, I actually think there's a lot of ways that you're going to see us. You know, I'm one of the big things I've addressed over the last couple of weeks. And again, back to the universal alignment, and I'll stop rambling here soon. But, you know, everyone was like, Pengu's down. I was like, dude, can you show me a thing in this category that is like, okay, I get it, we're down 75%, right? Well, and like every other meme is down 60% or 65%, or maybe down a little bit worse than the next person. But like this whole category got smashed. You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of weird how like it feels like everyone's kind of pointing at us as like the outlier. And it's like, dude, I get it. But if you would have bought any meme at any point in the last 6 or 8 weeks, you'd be down pretty bad. Right. The beauty is like where you think those might not come back, because what do they have going for them? You know, I'm going to give my blood, sweat, and tears at every waking moment of my life to make sure that this thing works. You know, like that's the difference. And so like what's changed? I guess the trade has just gotten better. It's a better trade than it was 4 weeks ago. I'll tell you that, because I still, you know, I told the community this, like, as long as Shiba Inu is above Pengu, there's something broken there. It's wrong. Right. And I believe that, whether I'm up, you know, on the day or down on the day, right? Like, I just believe that. I won't stop until I can sit there and be like, I told you guys I was right. Right. Because that just is broken. And that's the last of my monologue. I know we're way over, but you guys, you know, I never do an interview with you guys because you guys are early in the morning. So we might as well keep the rambling going.
Look, man, I really, really appreciate the honesty. And also just, I mean, we've spoken about abstract, spoken about Pengu. Just like, I think one of the biggest attractions to the project is your absolute undefeatable attitude. Like, I think people have obviously spoken about that before, but it's an incredible amount of passion and dedication that I think you're putting out there on the timeline every single day, trying to get after it. And yes, as you said, things are always wonderful when the price is up. When the price goes down, it's not as easy. But I don't think anyone can fault you for that in terms of your effort and passion and dedication. So like, it's just palpable. You can feel it, the passion flowing as we're discussing. But as you said, conscious of time, we have run a little bit over. I just wanted to give you one final opportunity, Luca, as we close. Like, is there anything else that you want to share with the people? Anything else that they should really know, whether it's about abstract, Pengu? Final thoughts before we round it off.
Yeah, I want you guys to hold me accountable. Like, abstract's going to work, and it's going to be fucking huge. And next time I'm on here, we're going to be talking off the backs of this thing succeeding and this thing working. And if it's not, I know Bread Guy is going to sit there and tell me straight to my face, you fucking did not do it. So, because Check and Legendary got the Penguins on. So Bread Guy, you gotta shoot me straight. And I know you do. Your feedback is always welcomed and it's honest. And I appreciate that. A lot of people just love to glaze and not give real meaningful feedback, or they love to be too cruel. And I think you hit it right in the middle. So I do appreciate your discourse when you do share it.
There's some lore to that. Yeah, people, like, whenever Abstract was announced, I pushed back, and Luca is saying what he did. We started talking, went to the DMs. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, let's talk about it, like, out in the open. Let's cut on a space. Let's have a conversation, because I have a point of view, you have a point of view, and I think nuance is lost in this space. So I really did appreciate, like, the ability to, like, or the desire to have a conversation.
Of course, no, and I as long as it's not crazy talk, you know what I mean, I'm totally willing to every single time. And you really you carry yourself super well, and I appreciate that. As somebody who wants productive feedback, I think there's a difference between, like, being a bully and trying to make, trying to give valuable feedback. So I appreciate you, actually, more than I think you would know. Your messages are on our Slack often, so I appreciate that, or at least they were. Back then. So, and then on the Pudgy Penguin side, like, look, I'm not going to, like, again, address the elephant in the room. Like, it's been a rough last couple of weeks, but, like, the vision doesn't change. We're not going anywhere. And the Penguin is still the most widely adopted and known crypto native character today of this cycle. Like, you cannot tell me otherwise. And the business and what we have in store, and the things that I think we're going to do with the token, and the things that we're going to do with the IP, and the things that we're going to do for the industry, this is going to be our best year ever, right? Like, if I know it already, like, from a enterprise expanding into a franchise and being something that crypto can be even more proud about, by the time this year is over, you guys are going to see something that, when you look back at it, you're going to be like, holy shit, these guys did it. Like, I know you're going to say that. And when that happens, I can only imagine that the ecosystem will be thriving and everyone will be happy. And the elephant in the room, which will be price, will solve itself and it'll work itself out. And, the community will be happy that they believe and that they held strong, and I don't think this will be any different than our cataclysmic dips in the past that we've come back from in bigger and greater ways every single time. And so hold me accountable the next time I'm up on this one, because I know we don't do these very often. We will talk about it, and we will see if we're marching in that direction or not.
Sounds great, Luca. We'll book it in the next few months. We will organize and do that. Man, really appreciate your time. We've definitely run over, done more than an hour here. That was a fantastic conversation. We'll have to do it again. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Take care.
Thank you.
And for the people who've just joined us, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. On Fridays, we do these special episodes where we're trying to dive in much deeper with crypto founders who are really, really trying to build crypto out for the future and bring the next generation of users that we all want to see interacting in crypto. So there we go. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care, and we will see you on Monday.